Welcome to Martin Luther 1520, an exhibit presented by Pastor Melissa Scott. The pieces you're about to see in this exhibit were displayed at Faith Center in Glendale, California. There are many wonderful treasures in this exhibit. You'll see a period map, a papal indulgence, 8 booklets from the year 1520, and an original papal bull. You will also see some letters from Martin Luther and journal entries from Pope Leo X. There are 4 kiosks. Each is unique and contains detailed information about Martin Luther and Pope Leo X, their friends and enemies, and a closer look inside the documents that changed the course of history. At the end of the tour, you will be able to explore these treasures in more detail. Martin Luther penned his 95 Theses, which enumerated the abuses on the subject of payment for pardon, known as indulgences. His intention was to have a scholarly debate on the matter, but instead he received a firestorm of opposition. The Roman papacy tried to discredit and silence him, officially accusing him of heresy, burning his books, and ultimately excommunicating him. In spite of all their efforts, they could not silence Luther or the truth of God's word. As we enter the exhibit, immediately to the left we see a period map produced by Sebastian Münster in the 1520s. It highlights the location of Wittenberg, Germany, where Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the church door. Unbeknownst to Martin Luther at the time, this one act would change the course of history forever. Next, an authentic papal indulgence from the same time period. The sale of indulgences was a distinct feature of Catholicism's system of penance. It was predicated on 2 beliefs: purgatory and the insufficiency of human penance, and forgiveness through absolution alone. Following the indulgence, the 8 booklets that you're about to see from the year 1520 contain the background of Luther's 95 Theses, the sale of indulgences, and ultimately what happens when Luther's 95 Theses gets to Rome. The first booklet on display is Luther's final response to Silvestre Mazzolini Pereres, the first man to officially accuse him of heresy. There are only 2 copies of this work in the United States. This is a first edition, first issue from Wittenberg, 1520. The second booklet is Luther's sermon on the ban. This is one of the numerous editions of this treatise on the Church's abuse of the ban, or excommunication, published in the first year of issue, Augsburg, 1520. The third booklet is entitled Exsurge Domine, or Arise, O Lord, Pope Leo X's papal bull which threatened Luther with excommunication. This particular copy was reprinted by a friend and champion of the Reformation, Ulrich von Hutten. This first edition, first issue from Strasbourg, 1520, features Hutton's polemical preface and side notes. The fourth booklet is Bernard Adelmann's personal copy of Luther's response to the papal bull Exsurge Domine. Adelmann wanted to help Martin Luther, but was afraid he might come under the ban himself. He essentially escapes the ban and for the rest of his life outwardly supports the Roman Catholic Church, but inwardly his heart is for Martin Luther and the Reformation cause. The fifth booklet is Luther's second response to the papal bull Exsurge Domine. Luther condemns the papal bull as blasphemy against Christ. He emphatically declares that anyone who agrees with this bull is the Antichrist and must be avoided. This is a first edition from Wittenberg, 1520. As Luther's excommunication looms, he wrote this 6th booklet entitled A Solemn Protest. Luther wrote this protest and sent it to Rome specifically in response to a letter that Cardinal Riario had written to Frederick the Wise III. Frederick allowed Luther to respond directly to Riario and made it appear as though the response came from Frederick. This is a first edition from Wittenberg, 1520. In the 7th booklet, Luther explains why he burned the papal bull Exsurge Domine. This is the second of 3 issues of the first edition from Wittenberg, 1520. The 8th and final booklet is an eyewitness report of Luther burning the papal bull Exsurge Domine. This is a very rare example from Augsburg. There are only 5 printings. As we move to our right, we find a beautiful example of an original papal bull. This is similar to the bull that Martin Luther burned at Wittenberg. Notice the lead seal or bulla from whence it gets its name. As we move around to the south wall of the exhibit, we see several letters from Martin Luther to some of his friends and allies: Ulrich von Hutten, Johann von Staupitz, and Andreas Karlstadt, to name a few. We also see the colourful journal entries of Pope Leo X, giving us a clearer insight into his selfish, deviant mind. Martin Luther was excommunicated, but he would not be silenced. While briefly in exile for his protection, he translated the Bible into the common German tongue and then returned to Wittenberg. Luther abolished obligatory confession, clerical celibacy, and the silent Mass, giving both the bread and the cup to the laity. Outside of the ecclesiastical realm, he established elementary schools throughout Germany. He introduced sermons as part of every church service, even penning a few great hymns to encourage the faithful to sing along. Luther was also responsible for social and economic reforms. He would continue to revise his Bible translation until his death of natural causes in 1546. Luther's life and writings have inspired generations of men and women to stand up for religious freedom and the truth of God's Word. If one man's courageous stand for Christ could change the course of history, imagine what we can do today. The pieces you've just seen in this exhibit have been digitally scanned for your viewing pleasure. Explore the 4 kiosks to learn more about Martin Luther, Pope Leo X, their friends and enemies, and the documents that changed the course of history. You may also read each of the 8 booklets and peruse the letters of Martin Luther and the journal entries of Pope Leo X. For more information about future exhibits, stay informed at PastorMelissaScott.com.